DreAllDay.com.
You are now tuned in to the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative, which is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, especially yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into one framework, one bundle, one package, one mindset, one method, one philosophy, one book. This masterclass that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is addressing cancel culture. Now, before we even get into this, anything that I say here today, you have a question on or a follow-up on, anything I don't address, I think I'm going to address everything. I think I do every day, but anything I don't, you can send me a text or let me know if anything really hits for you or is insightful for you. Send me a text. The number is 305-384-6894. Again, it's 305-384-6894. Now, the reason why the topic is the topic here today is that I saw this story about this guy who worked at, actually heard someone talking about it, and then I went and looked at it myself. There's a guy who worked at the New York Times for 45 years. His name was Donald McNeil Jr. And in a story that he wrote back in 2019, 2 years ago, he had used the N-word for the story. He used the N-word in the story. Now, he's not black. He used the N-word in the story because he was quoting someone else saying something. So he had heard about how some youth had used the N-word in a way that got them in trouble. So then when he was asking that youth, did you use this word? He actually said the word while asking the question. He put that in his story, that he said, he put it in, he quoted himself as saying the word, but he was using it in the context of asking someone else, did you say the word? And it was all just part of a bigger story that he was writing. Now, again, this was in 2019 that it happened. So this is how cancel culture works. I think most of you know this. Some people, somehow, some way, some people found out about this article from 2 years ago. Now, even though it was only 2 years ago, because a lot of times people are getting stuff dug up from 20, 30 years ago. It was only 2 years ago, but we see how much content gets published every day to the internet. And this article was not some kind of viral news story. This is something that came and went like most articles that get published, even in the New York Times. Somebody dug up this article of him quoting himself using the N-word and somehow turned it into some type of thing, because these days people are so quickly triggered by things like this, especially anything that screams of anything that involves race. People get so triggered so quickly. I think we all know about this, no matter what color you are. So here's what ended up happening to shorten this long story. There were 150 staff members who work at the New York Times who bonded together, and as a unit, they approached the New York Times, the powers that be at the New York Times, and demanded that Mr. McNeil, the guy who quoted himself using the N-word, in a contextual way that was pretty innocent, I think anyone with half a brain could admit, they bonded together and demanded that the New York Times fire this guy. Even though his intent, obviously, again, was not malicious. He was just explaining what was happening in this situation. And this is what these 150 New York Times members said together in the message that they sent to their bosses at the New York Times. They said that his intent did not matter, because the fact that he used the N-word made it, quote, racist language. And what matters most, and this is also a quote, what matters most is how it makes the victims feel, close quote. Now, most of the staff at the New York Times, now I've never worked at the New York Times. I don't know most of the people who work at the New York Times, but most of the people who work at the New York Times are white folks. And they're calling themselves, I suppose, maybe saving or speaking up for people of color. I'm sure there were some people of color involved in that group. Hey, maybe the ringleader of that group was a person of color. I don't quite know. That detail I did not dive into in talking about this thing. But I know that most of those 150 people were not people of color. And even if they were, how could they get the New York Times, the paper of record? This is a newspaper that built its reputation as being, this is the place you want to go when you want to get the final word, the final facts, the best written, best researched story on what is going on. And the New York Times had that title for a very long time. Now, as far as I'm concerned, and I talked about this in episode 1474 when I told you to stop watching the news, New York Times lost that title somewhere They lost that title somewhere around 2015, 2016-ish when Donald Trump got involved in politics. And listen, Trump played a role in this. He bashed the New York Times so many times that the New York Times decided to abandon objectivity, and anything that they could twist or spin to make Trump look bad, they started doing it. Now, did Trump do some things to make himself look bad? Yes, he did. Did the New York Times stop reporting on him objectively? Yes, they did. They both are held accountable for doing that. And at that point, the New York Times completely lost their title of being objective. And then when it came to anything involving race, anything involving social justice, anything involving politics, and anything involving, I guess we could even say, pandemics with COVID, the New York Times does not report objectively anymore. And I still follow the New York Times. I like reading their stuff on anything other than those topics, anything other than politics or race. As far as the pandemic stuff goes, I don't know who to trust on that, because nobody can even agree on what's factually true. But on those other topics, I don't want to hear from the New York Times anymore. Or actually, I do, because I know what I'm going to get. When I hear from them, I know what I'm getting. It's like if I go to a rap concert, I know I'm going to see some rap music. If I go to a rock concert, I know I'm going to hear rock music. I know what I'm getting. If I go to a water park, I know I'm going to get wet. All right, so I got an idea of what I'm getting when I'm dealing with the New York Times these days. And I'm bringing all that up to say, as getting back to my main point, most of the people who work there are white people. I guess they call themselves speaking up for people of color when they are unqualified to do so. And I don't know who asked them to do so, but they shouldn't be. But anyway, this is what happened, and we'll get to that later. And there are so many more examples of just people getting straight up canceled that we've all seen. After the Capitol riot, or whatever you want to call that thing that happened at the Capitol in early January 2021, somehow, some way, shortly after that, it seemed like the people who did the thing, the people who stormed the Capitol and went into the building illegally, they were being identified and arrested and charged and tried, whatever's going to happen to those people. All of a sudden, it seemed, and it didn't take long, somehow, some way, the story got twisted to, all right, so anybody who either at the rally initially, not the people who went in the building, but the people who were if you attended the rally, and then you just turned around and went home, or you went back to your hotel room, or you did anything but you did not go into the Capitol. You didn't storm the Capitol, but you were at the rally, then you were culpable for some reason, even though you didn't do anything illegal. All you did was go to a rally. Whether you, as the person accusing them, thinks that the rally had a just cause or not, whether you think Trump saying they stole the election from him, whether you think he had a right to say that or not, everyone has a right to peacefully assemble. So people saying, or anyone who was even at the rally, they're guilty. And now these people a lot of them were being canceled in one way or another. I heard this woman, she was on the Megyn Kelly show, and she was talking about, she was from Oregon, and she went to the rally in D.C. on January 6th, the day of the Capitol riot. She was at the rally, but she did not go to the Capitol. She did not go inside the Capitol. She was never charged with the crime. She didn't do anything. All she did was go to the rally. And what happened afterward, because people found out that she had been at this rally, and she owned a business, and her business started getting, people were leaving bad negative reviews on her page. People were harassing her kids. She was being harassed at home and things like that. She had to move out of her town and move somewhere else to a different state because she was being harassed so badly just for her association with, again, she was guilty by association. She hadn't actually done anything wrong. And then it got extended. Even after that, in the weeks or so after that, people were saying, okay, well, anyone who even supported Trump or voted for Trump or had said anything positive about Trump or in any way perpetuated any story that maybe the election results were not valid, they were being canceled. People were getting fired from their jobs. People were being deplatformed. People were being just harassed and attacked and doxxed. That's when people take your personal information and make it public just to insinuate to other people, hey, let's go attack this person because they did something wrong. A lot of that was happening after the Capitol situation. And I remember what's funny about it is maybe, I don't know how long ago this was, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, Dave Chappelle did a stand-up special on Netflix. And it's funny that Dave Chappelle gets brought up here, and I'll explain to you why in a moment. He did a special called Sticks and Stones. And at the beginning of this special, he was talking about the fact that this is what he said. He said, I'm going to do a impersonation, and you all tell me who I'm talking about. And his impersonation, the long and short of it was, I'm not going to try to sound like Dave, but he said, if I find out, and this is him impersonating, If I find out about anything you've ever did in life that I can hold against you and make you look bad and try to destroy your whole life, I'm going to do it and tear you apart. Who am I talking about? Who am I impersonating, everybody? He asks this question to the crowd, and people in the crowd are saying different things, and there was no unifying answer. And Trump said, not Trump, Chappelle said, some people did say Trump, but Chappelle finally answered the question and told everybody, I'm talking about you motherfuckers. I'm talking about you. You all are the ones doing this. And he was talking about cancel culture, how people just pull up anything from your past, anything they could possibly use to make you look bad, and then try to use it against you to destroy you. And then he went on to do an hour plus stand-up special where he made jokes about, of course he made a bunch of race jokes, which Trump does. I keep saying Trump, which Chappelle does all the time. He made jokes about the LGBTQ community, and they got really angry at him about that, even though Dave Chappelle is a fucking comedian. And it seemed like people were going to try to cancel him. People couldn't really cancel him, but Chappelle's been making these jokes since way before it was a thing that everybody was talking about. And that's what I want to talk about here today. And it's funny that Dave Chappelle is the guy that I bring up here. This last part of this introduction to this episode. Again, we're addressing cancel culture. It's funny that I bring up Chappelle because he's kind of become woke. Dave Chappelle's gone really woke. I see these clips that he posts of comedy shows that he's doing, and it seems like this is how it used to be with Dave Chappelle. He would tell jokes, and then he would add social commentary, would kind of be like the seasoning on the jokes. He would throw some social commentary in with the jokes that he was telling, but we knew what we were getting with Dave Chappelle. We were getting a comedy show. Nowadays, with Dave Chappelle, we're getting a social justice speech or a social commentary speech, and then the jokes are like the seasoning. So it used to be jokes seasoned with social commentary. Now it's social commentary seasoned with jokes. Dave Chappelle's kind of not even a comedian anymore. He's kind of like a professional speaker. It's kind of like what he's doing these days. He's giving social justice speeches. But again, he can do whatever he wants to do. It's his business. But I'm bringing it up because of the topic we're talking about here today. We're addressing cancel culture. Point number 1. The most dangerous weapon when you're looking to, especially in the world that we have today, with the way that people can anonymously attack each other and try to make another person look bad, and they need to justify it if someone wants to defend themselves. The most dangerous weapon is feelings. Feelings is the most dangerous weapon. Why? Because what did those New York Times staffers do? They said the reason why you should fire this guy is not because, objectively speaking, he did not intend to use the N-word in a racist way, because they all knew that. That's not why you should fire him. They didn't try to argue that because they would have lost. Here's what they argued. They argued that the fact that he used the word made certain people feel attacked. And the New York Times bought that fucking story, and they fired this guy. He'd been working there for 45 years. There's one thing he'd been working there for 45 days. One thing if he was a new guy. You lose a 45-year career over somebody telling you that your use of a word, even though it was used in a very benign way, made other people feel bad, and that's why you should get fired. And it wasn't even the people who felt bad who got him fired. It was people speaking on behalf of the people who were supposedly feeling bad. They got him fired. That seems completely ridiculous to me, and that's what sparked the idea for me doing this very episode. Why do I say that feelings are the most dangerous weapon? And this is point number 1. Because feelings are not facts. See, facts can be proven. We can argue back and forth about the use of a word and how you use it and the intent and all of that. But feelings you can't prove. You can't argue with somebody if they say, well, this is how it feels, especially if they're arguing on behalf of somebody who's not even there. Feelings can't be countered. So when feelings are an allowed weapon in something like this, where people are anonymously and they're not even knowing a person, just trying to get them canceled, make them look bad, there's no counter argument. The cancel culture is more about feelings than it is about facts, because fact effectively cancels people on his own merit. Like if somebody does something wrong and everybody knows you did something wrong, well, you just be canceled on the merit of you did the wrong thing. Remember somebody like O.J. Simpson. Now, O.J. Simpson is still alive, but where do you see O.J. Simpson on a public forum? Like, nobody invites him on their shows. You don't see O.J. in a whole lot of places getting a whole lot of public press. Why? Because many people, even though he factually beat his case, many people seem to have decided, the court of public opinion has decided that OJ was guilty. He just happened to get off on the case. Feelings need to hit a critical mass in order to cancel someone. Somebody like, even again, somebody like OJ, who factually was innocent of murder. Many people, when they hear his name, the first thing they think, okay, well, he committed murder. He just happened to get away with it. And when its own merits of people having that belief, OJ Simpson he got canceled. He canceled himself just by being in the situation that he was in, whether you believe he did it or not. He canceled himself just by being in the situation. That's it. There's no argument. Nobody had to build a case about him. Nobody had to start a hashtag about him. It was very simple and it's done. But see, when it's feelings, it doesn't work. Feelings don't work on their own merit. Feelings, you need to hit a critical mass. You need to get a bunch of people feeling the exact same way and saying that they feel the exact same way, at least, to get somebody canceled. And this is what's happening. This is the essence of what cancel culture is. And the mainstream media now contributes to cancel culture. This is why I told you in episode 1474 to stop watching the news, because they do not tell you objective stories anymore. All they do is feed you more of the narrative that will help you feel the way that you already feel, because you wouldn't be watching their network if you didn't agree with the things they were talking about. It's unfortunate because now we can't get objective information from anywhere. And this is one of the biggest challenges with information and reporting and journalism these days, is that it's hard. You have to do hard work to find objective information, and most people are not willing to do hard work. I told you some harsh truths about human beings, that people are lazy, people don't think, and people don't read. That was episode number 1717. The 3 most dangerous truths about people is that people don't want to do hard work and people don't want to read. So they just wait for someone else to tell them what to think and tell them what the story supposedly is, and they just buy into it without even doing their own research. And this is how we get cancel culture, because people are buying into a story, don't even know the facts of the story, because no facts are being reported. All that's being reported these days are feelings and opinions, and they're stated as if they are facts. And since most people don't think and most people are lazy, they don't do the work to find out, is that actually a fact, or is it an opinion that's being dressed up as a fact? And it just keeps getting worse. The situation just keeps perpetuating itself, and this is how we get cancel culture. So now that I've stated the problem, let's move on to point number 2. I'm going to tell you more of it. The topic, once again, is addressing cancel culture. Number 2, companies and governments who end up doing this canceling. The New York Times is a company. A government can cancel somebody. They decide that they don't want to deal with a certain person. They don't like something that a certain person said, and then there's enough of a majority in there that you can get their feelings going. And understand that just because someone holds a political office or they wear a suit every day doesn't mean they aren't just as driven by feelings as you are. They just happen to have more power to do something with them than maybe you do. But they are human just like you are. Companies and governments who do this canceling, they are not acting in the interests of people. So in other words, when a government decides to cancel an official inside of the government because of public outcry, they're not doing it because they're trying to help you out and satisfy you. The New York Times did not fire that guy from the company. They didn't fire Mr. McNeil from the New York Times. They didn't fire him because they did some deep analysis and realized that what he'd done had made some people feel bad, even though that's what they published when it actually happened. When they fired him, that's what they said. That's not the reason that they did it. Let me tell you why they actually do it. Why companies actually fire people just because that person supported the wrong candidate, or that person allegedly said something 2 years ago, and that person used a certain word in the joke 10 years ago, and now people are resurfacing the tweet. The reason companies cancel people or they fire people out of those when that outcry comes out is not in the interest of the people who actually did the outcrying. The New York Times didn't fire because of the people. The New York Times fired that guy because the New York Times has positioned itself as a woke publication. They've positioned themselves as very leftist. They position themselves as social justice warrior speakers. That's what they position themselves as. And if you read the publication, no one can be listening to what I just said if you read anything that they put out, especially on those topics, and tell me that I'm wrong. If I am, text me and let me know. 305-384-6894. They have to, the New York Times, because of the way they position themselves, they have no choice but to own that corner now. All right, they put themselves in that position. Now they have to play that position. They own that corner of being woke and social justice focused. So now when something happens that allows them to prove their wokeness and their social justice focus, they got to do it. So they had to fire this guy. And in the process of doing all that, they lose their objectivity because now they're leaning so far to one side of a conversation. Now we know anytime that conversation comes up, they have no choice but to play it a certain way. So now they can't be the paper of record anymore. They're trying to save their own asses, this is the New York Times, from the very culture that they promote. Because if they didn't fire that guy and this became a big deal, and it did become a big deal. When they fired him, it became a big deal. If they didn't fire that guy and they said, hey, well, wait a minute. Now, while he did use the N-word in his article as a white guy, let's be clear, he used the N-word in a way that he was quoting another person. It was part of a story. He used it in a benign way. He was not using it in a malicious way. Anyone can read the context of the story and realize that. You fucking idiots. Why are y'all asking us to cancel him? Hell no, we're not canceling him. Shut the hell up. Everybody move on. Read the next story that we put out and keep paying our monthly subscription fee. Well, that's what they would have said if they were being objective. They would have said it maybe in a nicer way, but that's what they would have said. What did they say instead? They had to cancel this guy because if they didn't, here's what would have happened. They would have got canceled by the very mob that they are feeding every single day. The cancel culture mob that they feed every day with their material would have come for their heads had they not done what the mob told them to do. So now they're actually being controlled by the very group that they feed every single day. The monster that they're raising will kill them if they don't keep feeding the monster. This is the issue with cancel culture. They will eventually come for you. As satisfied as you get, anyone listening to me right now, as satisfied as you get when someone gets canceled and it makes you feel good, understand you will be just as disappointed when it bites you. All right, you raise up a snake from near death. Eventually, the snake is going to bite you with a double dose of venom. Why? Because the snake doesn't know how to do anything but be a snake. Now, you raise up a monster, the monster will eventually come and chop your head off. You think the monster has loyalty to you? No. This is and the New York Times dealt with this in this situation right here because it made no sense. And listen, this is a black person saying it. This guy, non-black person, used the N-word in the article. I'm saying there's no way that he should have been fired for that. Now, again, if he had used it in a different way, maybe that's a different conversation. But this conversation seemed pretty open closed in the exact opposite way of the way the New York Times made it end up being open closed. And the reason why I say that has nothing to do with the guy himself, Daniel McNeil. I don't know him, never met him, didn't even know what he looked like. The thing is, if that is enough to get him out of his position, how much is necessary to get you out of your position? And again, it doesn't matter what color you are. It doesn't matter where you're at or what you've done. Do you have that kind of resume? All right, so how easy would it be for someone to do the same thing to you? That's the thing that I want you to keep in mind as we move on to point number 3. Topic, once again, is addressing cancel culture. Number 3, when this cancel, what's the word that I want to look for here? When people catch this cancel virus, when people just get into this mindset of we're just going to cancel this person or this company or this thing because of whatever feelings that they're feeling, and they have been able to gather up enough momentum within the groupthink for these feelings, canceling removes context. And what canceling does is provide you a blanket excuse to discredit and discard everything about a person because of one thing that you deem to be objectionable. That's what cancel culture does. So this, in that sense, this is not new. In that sense, this is something that people have done all the time. So someone could say something like, let's say a person walks into a room and they make a certain comment, and then you look at them and you hear what they say, you don't like what they said, and then you realize, oh, you know what? Oh, he's a Democrat. You know what? No wonder he's an idiot. All right, so the fact that he's a Democrat means anything that he says, we're just going to discredit. Oh, this person over here, oh, they like the yellow M&M, so no wonder they said something dumb. Of course they're going to say anything. Anybody who likes the yellow M&M, anything they say, we can just blanket discredit it because of that one thing. That's cancel culture. That is a microcosm of cancel culture. You have this one thing about you that I disagree with, or I don't like, or I can deem as negative. Therefore, anything that you do, I'll just say we can throw that away because of this one thing that I'm going to keep trying to use against you over and over again forever. Here's the problem with that mentality, is that just as easily as you could use it on somebody else, somebody could use it on you, because last time I checked, I don't know any perfect human beings. So if you think being able to cancel another person based off of that is useful, how useful will it be when the same group that you are a part of then turns on you and does it to you? Because eventually that will happen. So you say, oh, this person over here, he got Me Too'd a couple years ago. Somebody accused him of some sexual deviancy, so we don't have to listen to him anymore. Oh, this person, they supported this candidate. Okay, so nothing they say ever again matters. I remember I was on social media not too long ago, and I saw some people debating basketball. I don't remember exactly what the topic was. It's not important. They're debating basketball, and then somebody said, this is the comment that a certain person made when they didn't agree with the comment that was made about basketball. They said, anyone who has this opinion obviously doesn't know basketball and they don't watch the games. It was a very this is a microcosm of cancel culture. All right, if you have this opinion, then anything that you say about basketball, we can just discredit because you had this one opinion that is stupid. That is canceling. You're canceling anything that person can say. You're invalidating everything about their opinion because you found one thing that you don't agree with, and this is your way of blanket getting rid of that person. All right, this is intellectually lazy. It gives you a free pass to discredit anything that person says. It's again, micro cancellation. And it's an issue because it's intellectually lazy, meaning you're giving your brain the day off. You're saying, all right, about this person, we're just going to discredit everything because of this one thing right here. So we don't have to consider or engage our brains to think about anything that this person says or does. The problem with that is you're cutting yourself off from information. You are making your circle smaller and smaller to the point that the only ideas or opinions or stories or anything that you'll be willing to listen to are ones that sound like you. And then you become a member of the bubble. Now you are inhabited inside of the bubble. And I talked about this in episode 1626, how to know you're in a bubble and how to get out of it. One way you know you're in a bubble is when every opinion you hear agrees with every opinion that you got. If you're not hearing anyone disagreeing with you, you're not hearing anyone who has an argument that goes against how you think and actually has some substance behind it, then you're probably in a bubble. Every opinion you hear seems to be the same as your opinion. That's a problem. That's not a good thing. That's a problem. It means you have encapsulated yourself to only hear what you agree with. And the platforms, the news, the mainstream media, and social media is all driving us towards this because it's easy for them. It's expedient for them to just give you more of what you want because that keeps you on their app and that's how they make their money. And since it's driven by money, people are going to do it because that's their incentive. If the incentive was challenging people to think, well, there'd be a lot less money to go around because people would not stay on the app as long because they heard something they don't like. They're like, oh, let me get on a different app. I don't like what I'm hearing on Twitter today. This is intellectually lazy, folks. I told you again, 3 things about people. People are lazy, people don't think, and people don't read. You want to be different from most people, you got to do the opposite of most people. Canceling someone, even in your mind, even if you just say in your mind, oh, this person thinks this way, so forget anything that they say about that topic. It gives your brain the day off. Understand your brain doesn't need a day off. You don't have to consider anything else about a certain person because you have identified a pretext that allows you to discard anything and everything about them. And again, if you can do it to someone else, other people can and will do it to you. And they're probably doing it to you already. Maybe you noticed, maybe you haven't. Point number 4. The topic, once again, is we are addressing cancel culture. Number 4, why cancellation is on the rise. Let me tell you why cancel culture has become what it's become. Because of the fear and cowardice of those who are joining the canceling group out of fear of being the next victim. This is why cancellation happens. The reason why someone can get canceled, the reason why 150 people banded together at the New York Times to get this one guy fired, I don't think all 150 people were offended by the way that this guy used the N-word in a story 2 years ago. No way. I'm willing to bet money that they were not all personally offended by that. So how did they get 150 people to all sign a letter saying that this guy should be fired? I would say a good percentage of that 150, the reason that they signed the letter is because if they didn't sign it, they would be the ones who got came for next by that same mob. So let's say it's 149 people all said, hey, Mike, we're going to get this guy fired. We got 149 signatures. Would you like to sign this letter? And then you read it and you thought this is fucking ridiculous. And you said that to them, say, listen, Mr. 149, Mr. and Mrs. 149 co-workers, this is fucking stupid. This makes no sense. Y'all are not being objective. You're taking this completely out of context. Makes no sense. Hell no, I'm not signing that. Y'all are a bunch of goddamn idiots. Guess what would have happened after they got done taking care of that guy who got fired? They would have came for you. So because of the fear and the cowardice of the people who are joining the mob just keeps getting bigger because nobody wants to go against the mob. Nobody wants to go against the grain. This is how these things work, and this is how these things start. They start like this, and then it gets worse. And here's what's funny. This is the same stuff that a lot of people said for 4+ years about the whole Trump regime. No, this is what they're going to do. They're going to do this, and it's going to do this, and it's going to do this, and they'll just get bigger and bigger and bigger, and it'll become some big, crazy, terrible thing. And this is the exact thing that everyone said this is what's going to happen if Trump gets elected. Well, he got elected. He's gone. That didn't happen. Now what was happening? The very people who are telling you what terrible thing was going to happen are now doing it. Point number 5. Topic once again is addressing cancel culture. As I said already earlier in this episode, the monster that you feed will eventually eat you. There used to be this comedy duo. I mean, well, one of them is not alive anymore, but it was a comedy duo by the name of Siegfried and Roy. Very famous, maybe the most famous. Did I say comedy? Magicians. I said comedy. I think I meant magicians. They were like magicians and comedians. They were kind of a mix of both. Entertainers. I say you got Harry Houdini, you got David Blaine, and then I guess you got these guys. You got maybe Penn and Teller, then you got Siegfried and Roy. So they would do these shows with animals and have animals doing all kinds of stuff. And it was kind of entertaining. It was funny. It was magic. It was all mixed in together. And there was a time years back, I don't know which one it was. I don't know if it was Roy or if it was Siegfried. One of them, with one of the exhibitions they did, had a tiger. And the tiger, who was, these animals that, if we're getting into a deeper discussion, they shouldn't be using animals in their shows because those animals belong out in the wild, in the jungle, wherever those animals live. They had an animal as part of their exhibition. And after they had done this exhibition so many times, hundreds of times they'd done these shows, one day the tiger in the show that they had went off script. The tiger went off script and attacked one of these performers. So let's just say it was Roy. I don't know which one it was. Let's just say it was Roy. The tiger attacked Roy, and it became a news story, and Roy damn near died. He survived it, but he got mauled by this tiger. And Chris Rock was doing a set in his comedy show, and he brings this up. He says, the tiger attacked, the guy from Siegfried and Roy, and people were going crazy on the news saying, hey, that tiger went crazy. The tiger went crazy. And Chris Rock said, no, the tiger did not go crazy. The tiger went tiger. All right, the tiger did what a fucking tiger does. All right, tigers don't go crazy. Human beings go crazy. All right, the tiger just did what a tiger normally does. And I'm telling you that to tell you this. All right, mobs come for whoever is in their path. So just because you're a part of the mob and it's taking down other people right now doesn't mean that one day the mob won't decide to turn on you and take you out. So be careful of the monster that you feed, because one day it's going to get hungry and you're going to be the next meal on the plate. So if you're trying to get people canceled and discredited and fired, even if you're doing it in your own mind, let me discredit this person because they think this way, or they said this, or they did this one thing that I'm going to keep trying to pound and bang against them and straw man them every time they come up. Understand something. They will come for you. So make sure you're not being a follower. Make sure you are thinking for yourself. Again, I told you, people do not think, people are lazy, and people don't read. Do not fall into that category. Think for yourself. Assess people and situations objectively. Stop letting people tell you how you're supposed to feel and what your opinions are supposed to be. If you're a person of color, stop letting people who are not people of color tell you how you're supposed to feel based on your skin color. That makes no sense. You don't need other people to speak for you. You don't need other people to tell you what your feelings are supposed to be. And if you are not a person of color, do not tell a person of color how they're supposed to feel based on something else that happened that has nothing to do with you and it's not your business. It's not your job to talk about it. You are not needed to speak up for people of color. People of color can speak for themselves. All right, I'm one, and I said it. I don't care how you feel, what hashtag you use, what group you claim to be a part of. You don't need to speak for a group that can speak for itself. And I don't care who else in this group that's the same color as me who thinks you do. I'm telling you that you don't. So you can decide which one you want to listen to, but I want to make sure I'm on the record. You don't need anyone else to, and this for everybody, you don't need anyone else to think for you. That is your job. Thinking is a job. All right, thinking is not easy, ladies and gentlemen. If it was, everybody would do it, as they said. Episode number 1610, I told you how to think for yourself. Thinking is an inside job. It is not something that, episode 1192, I told you that thinking is a skill. These are things that you need to focus on doing for yourself. There's not something that you need somebody else to tell you what your opinion is supposed to be just because this happened, and they got a voice and they claim to be emotional about it. Listen, emotions are easy to fake these days, and emotions are being monetized and leveraged against people. And again, if you allow them to sweep you up into the group, one day the group will turn on you because they ain't got nothing else to eat, and you're the next meal. All that being said, let's recap today's class, which is addressing cancel culture. There was a guy, as I said, New York Times got fired after 45 years because his benign use of the N-word in an article where he was quoting himself, asking a question, and a group of his co-workers banded together to get him fired, and there were probably ulterior motives for this. You can read up about it yourself. Again, his name was Daniel McNeil Jr. And they said it's not because of his intent, but because of how it makes other people feel, his racist language, quote unquote. Now, again, I'm black. I didn't find it racist. So why a bunch of white people at the New York Times decided that they need to speak up on it? Well, today I'm telling you why. Cancel culture. Number one, the most dangerous weapon in cancel culture is feelings. It's a weapon because feelings are not facts, which can be proven and argued. Feelings can't be countered. If they're an allowed weapon, there's no counter argument, and this is what people use. See, a fact will cancel someone on its own merit. So you don't have to argue why somebody should be canceled based on a fact. It will be self-evident. The reason that people have to argue and make hashtags and start movements over things are because of their feelings. And feelings are unpredictable. All right, feelings are unwieldy. You don't want to base your success or your failure on feelings. Point number two, companies and governments who cancel, who fire people and things like that because of pressure from the mob, they're not doing it because of the pressure from the mob. Well, actually, they kind of are, but they're kind of not. They're not doing it in the interest of the people because of the greater good or any of that shit. They're doing it because they don't want to get canceled by the same mob that they are now serving. It is just fear. And companies, just because somebody has on a suit and they work in a high-rise building and they got their name on the door, does not mean they don't suffer from the same feelings and the same weaknesses that you do. Do not be impressed. And point number three, canceling removes context. It provides an excuse to blanket, discredit, and or discard anything and everything about a person. So if a person gets Me Too, we can say, oh, we don't have to listen to them anymore. Someone's a supporter of the wrong candidate, nothing that they say matters. This is intellectually lazy, ladies and gentlemen. It's a micro cancellation that we all do many times in our own minds to other people, even on a small scale. It's intellectually lazy because you're basically telling yourself you don't have to consider anything that a certain person says because they had one opinion or maybe two, maybe 10 that you disagreed with. Understand that if you can do it to another person, they can do it to you. And if everyone does this to everyone else, eventually we're going to have all kinds of bedlam in the streets. And I don't know if everyone's prepared for that. Point number four, cancellation is on the rise because of the fear and cowardice of people who join the group out of the fear of being the next victim of the group. I doubt that all 150 people who signed that petition at the New York Times really felt that this guy needed to be fired. But if 10 of those 150 had not signed it, that 140 who remained would have came after that 10 next. So out of the fear, they just joined the group, not because they actually believed it. And number five, the monster you feed will eventually eat you. Like Chris Rock said, tigers don't go crazy, tigers go tiger. If you're trying to get people canceled and discredited and fired, eventually the mob that you serve will eventually come for you. Do not be a follower. Think for yourself. Assess people and situations objectively. Stop letting people tell you how you are supposed to feel and what your opinion should be. Do not let another person tell you how you're supposed to feel based on the group that you belong to or what color you are. And if you're a person who is not part of a certain group, you are unqualified to tell another person in that group how they're supposed to feel based on their color because you're fucking unqualified. You ain't part of that group. You can support it. You can have your opinion, but you are unqualified. I'm saying it to tell them how they are supposed to feel based on where they're from or what group they're a part of. It makes no sense whatsoever. Mind your business. I did an episode on minding your business. Your business is not to tell other people what their opinion should be. And if you're letting other people tell you what your opinion should be, you got work to do. And that's why we got this show right here. Work on your, anything I said in this episode, you want to question, you want to challenge. If anything resonated, if anything made sense, I hope there was a lot. Send me a text, 305-384-6894. Work on your game. Dre all day.